We need more power. Is that it? Is that the meme? Tutopolis is a sprawling city with an industry to boot. But let's be honest here, it's piddly. Supported by a single dam and a few small windmills, this industrial platform is more of an industrial shelf. Today, we change all that by upgrading our main power generators. We start by taking advantage of the Badwater River above the colony for its constant flow, take our slapped together wind farm and turn it into something actually worth having, and put in a drought failsafe: gravity batteries. Along the way, we will expand our industry into paper production, which is needed for wind turbines, as well as clean up our old infrastructure, moving our power lines underground, as well as finally saying goodbye to our old plank and gear factories around Jayunya Memorial Dam. And with that, welcome back to Tutopolis. Now, we have 4/5 of a day until a drought, which is good. Because like we said in the intro, we're going to come over here to this Badwater River. We're going to change it a little bit, and then we're going to set up some power generation here. So the main thing we're going to be doing here is we're going to cut this river with dynamite. And we're going to make it a straight line across so that we can fit 10 or so water wheels in here. Because right now, if we were to just build water wheels, we could only get a couple. And this water flow, the way it is going, won't give us the best power generation with water wheels. We want it to be in as straight of a line as possible. So I'm just going to start by planning out where this dynamite is going to go. And then I'm going to obviously let them build this dynamite over here, but this dynamite we will wait until the drought so that we can actually cross this Badwater River without having to use platforms. And now the drought has started, which means I'm going to build a way for them to cross over this river. Oop, that was not what I wanted. All right, and then the other thing we're going to need here is levees. We want to restrict this river in a way that where our water wheels are going to be, the water is going to be just 2 blocks thick. So we're going to get some levees. And I'm going to have to run them all the way down to here? Here? That's right. And then on this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to restrict. We're going to need only a single block that water can get through here. All right, and with our channel cut into the rock here, I think it is time for us to prepare for where our water wheels are going to go. So if I've done everything right here, I'm going to be able to fit water wheels in every space of this channel. And I am. Now, this all is going to take an extra minute here because we have run out of logs, which reminds me that I need to do one thing. We have all these birch trees over here, and other than the ones that are now fully grown, we should get rid of these. Since there is no way that these birch trees will end up dying during a bad tide or anything similar, since we now have a way of expelling bad water all the way up here, we should replace these birch trees with pines. So unlike these pine trees over here, which are going to be just for tapping, these ones over here are going to be for cutting. Now the reason we do this is because birch take 9 days to produce 1 log, and pines take 12 days to produce 2 logs. So it only takes about 1/3 more days to produce pine trees than it does birch trees, but yet it produces double the amount of logs. All right, and the drought now has ended. So that benefit of not affecting the water is no longer in play. But luckily, as our bad water spills over the side here, it does look like we have finished enough of this dam that it is not going to be a problem. There's just this one final levee that they've got to finish. that honestly is not even that important. Well, now, as we start to build our water wheels in here, that's not going to actually affect the flow, but we can see that there's not an issue with these one wide gaps. We are just going to be getting all of the bad water, and it is going to be coming from down at our bad water up top and going all the way through here. So with that out of the way, it's time for us to actually connect this up to our main power grid. And this is really going to be the trick of it all. So we're going to get rid of these paths because we're going to need that space. Now these first couple, I'm going to build T-junctions on. And then this middle one, I'm going to build a four-way junction. And actually, I'm going to build a couple four-way junctions. That may never come into play later, but it is what I'm going to do just in case we do want to put anything powered up in this area. Now for this last water wheel, I am going to once again use a T-junction, but I'm going to still terminate it going parallel to the line we were going, and I'm going to make it turn off perpendicularly. That will come back later today, but right now might not make much sense. And then the other thing I want to do, I'm not particularly worried about having these power lines exposed, although we might cover them up, but I do want to just come over here and build this path back in so that we can get to the other side of the river, because part of the thought of doing this right here is that we do have the opportunity down the line, if we need more power, we could actually just build a sort of snake motion right here and just keep adding on to the power generation that way. So those water wheels are now all connected to each other, but we need to get power from over here all the way over to our industrial area over here. Now, we do have two ways we could do this. We could boost the power over this way, maybe run it along on platforms and bring it over to this part of the map. But quite frankly, I trust in my audience enough to think that you've already probably figured out that you can put power lines on platforms, and if you wanted to do that, you would be. So I'm going to suggest something different here. We're going to bring it around this corner, and I'm going to do that with one high platforms. Now that may seem odd because this is too high up here and this is too high. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down off of this cliff. And then I am going to blow through this part of the cliff here. Now, this all is going to eventually culminate in us running this power line under platforms on this path. All right, and it looks like our water wheels are now in place. So if we look here, if we click on this water wheel, we will see that it is generating 2100 horsepower. Now that water wheel is going to generate horsepower during both a flood season like this and a bad tide. So unlike these, we won't lose all of the power that we are generating while the colony is in a bad tide, which is a big part of the reason that we want to utilize this area. But with that, it's now time to move over to getting our power lines under here. So I'm just going to blow these three up and run our power. And then I'm also going to cover these up with platforms. And I'm actually going to cover this entire bit up with platforms just because I think it'll look better. I think that this looks ugly like this, and it'll look better if it's covered the whole way. But now the second thing we're going to need to do, we've got our power running over here. So it's time that we dig up this entire path and get our power over to this area. So obviously to do that, we're going to need to use dynamite. And a very important thing here, we do not want to blow this dynamite up during the day, because if we do so, we are going to kill our beavers. In general, if a beaver is walking on the path, it will kill a beaver to get blown up. So we are going to avoid doing that. So with day turning to night, we've got to wait for this one single beaver to get done with what they're doing. And then we should have no issue, but I'm still going to wait for them to all go to bed. All right, now that they're all pretty much in bed, I'm going to hit the detonate button. And everything over here is going to gradually become disconnected. With this paused, we're just going to run our power lines underneath here. And then for this last little bit, I'm going to set up a T-junction along with the way the path works. And I'm going to build our platforms. Not that one. We are going to build our platforms back on top. Then reconnect these. And I'm going to set these platforms to be higher priority. What we will see here is that if I reopen the priority, the platforms up top have been set to a higher priority than the power shafts underneath, which is actually what we want, because we want these paths built beforehand so that our beavers can get where they're going and reconnect all this stuff. So we now have two beavers who are stuck underneath everything, which we can fix, or should be able to fix, by blowing a hole right here. And there, they're out. And looking underneath here, our power shafts are now moving, which does mean that we can connect them up to our system here. Now I'm going to start deleting these power shafts, because I want to move all of our power shafts underground. Not these ones are fine. But the ones in this area, I want to be underground for the most part. And we have inadvertently caused a torture situation, because Zinba here is trying to generate enough power to power 570 horsepower by himself. And I don't think he's going to be able to. While doing this, I'm just for the most part going to attempt to recreate the earlier power shafts, the way that those were in here. And the last thing I do want to recycle over here is these wind turbines. We will be building ourselves new wind turbines shortly. And if it is not a drought, we will have more than enough power with these two water wheels. Now, of course, that is kind of ironic because we're now coming to a drought, but we will have drought management solved in a little bit here. And then we will wait for all of our beavers to clear out again, which shouldn't be too long now. We will blow all of this to high heaven. Oh, I hope this beaver is going to be fine. I think he's far enough away. He was. Whew. That was risky. So we get that and then hook that in. And this, before I forget and before they build it incorrectly, this should be a three-way connector. If I was being smart, I actually would have because that hasn't been built either. I'm going to make this connector here a 4-way. And then that should be somewhat future-proof. And I know I just said I thought it was going to be future-proofed, but I just remembered. Now this shouldn't be much of an issue, honestly. It's still pretty future-proof, but I do need to grab power from here. And then, of course, the grand irony here is that we finished this just as a drought hit. So currently, all of our buildings are being powered by, once again, this torture device, where now it's Ajin, not Zenma anymore, is trying to supply 1,600 horsepower all by himself. But I guess that's what happens when you get assigned to the power wheel. And then, despite the drought, we are going to move on to our next project, which is going to be paper. So if we come down here, we have a paper mill. It's going to be 12 gears, 40 planks, and 40 logs. It's going to take 1 log every 1.6 hours and produce 2 paper. 250 science points, we have more than enough. 80 horsepower, we do not have enough right this second, but once our water wheels are again in commission, we are going to. So I'm going to unlock that, and I'm going to build 2 paper mills back to back here. Now, underneath this paper mill, this front one, we do have an upward powered shaft, which is going to mean, unlike over here where we had to retrofit this in and build these downward power shafts going into the building, buildings are able to receive power directly underneath them, so we won't have any visible power shafts right here. These buildings will just appear to be powered despite not having any visible shafts running into them. So see, it pulls from the same power input as everything else, which of course at the moment is 60 horsepower being split up between about 20 different factories, so it's pretty small. And as always, we are going to build a small warehouse to store paper here. And then we are of course going to need somewhere to store that paper. We're going to build a paper storage over here, and I'm doing that rather than on this side because this is mostly food that's being stored over here, because it is meant to be close to our living area. But this paper should actually be closer to our industrial uses. And that way it's only being moved from this spot to this spot. They don't use paper for anything except for building or the printing press. Now, while we wait, because this dam isn't providing us any power anyway right now, I think it is finally time that we make Jayunya Memorial Dam nothing more than a dam. This lumber mill and this gear workshop, they've been here quite long enough. It's time to tear them down and reclaim some of this space. And we will have to reconfigure this bit of the dam so that it's actually going to transfer the power, since we were having that be transferred through the lumber mill before, but now obviously we can't do that. And then right here where these storages were, that's only 1 block, I'm just going to put down a couple more showers. But then other than that, we will do something with this area that we have reclaimed at the end of the episode. I'm not just going to leave it blank, partially because I think it just looks bad. And then of course we are going to need to replace the gear workshop and the lumber mill that we just destroyed. So we're going to put that gear workshop there. It will get power from being adjacent, just like these other ones are. And that'll be that. And now with power running again, we should see that this medium warehouse gradually fills up with paper. And so our next project, windmills. Now I should just immediately start with actually building a way to get up here. So as we do this, it should be noted that, like many things in this series, I'm going to build the windmills up here on this plateau, but that's not necessary. There is somewhat of a misconception that windmills will produce more power if they are up high on a plateau like this, but they actually don't. The height of a windmill has no effect on how much power that windmill is going to generate or how often it generates power in Timberborn. What having our windmills up here will do, however, is look really cool. So I'm going to build them up here. Now I'm going to preemptively build my upward power shafts. Because if I don't, I'm worried that they will get stuck, having not built them. Mostly just because beavers get real finicky about building things on stairs. So if we do this now, we should have no issues. And so with this land up here cleared out, we've got to think about where we are putting our windmills. So a windmill's going to cost us 30 paper, 20 gears, and 40 planks. They can't be too close to one another. They need to be at least 2 away from one another. And they do get power from the sides here, which is going to mean that we have to be conscious about where we're building these, because we don't want to be in a situation where, again, we have to sever power, like over here, to build something. Now, these do transfer power, so that's not going to be an issue. But if we, for example, built one here, we would either have to transfer the power out back or completely sever our beavers' access to get to the rest of this plateau. Additionally, we can build 2 high platforms, so that is not going to be an issue. But I am just going to start somewhat carefully placing these so we can get up here. But if we build one here, then we are going to have connectivity issues. Unless, of course, we build platforms for the beavers to walk on, which I might just end up doing that. All right, so since we have these windmills up, we now have to connect them, which is going to be a bit of a trick. I mean, I can just do this, though, I think. I will do one cheeky little connection like that. So, that should all be good. It's going to be a big wind farm producing lots of wind and taking forever to get built because we don't really have the paper to build it right now. But as the first one gets built, it is already adding an extra 100 horsepower, except for the fact that I never connected it up, so hold please. All right, now it is all connected up. And as we can see, the supplemental power, which is at almost its maximum right now, is being pumped directly into our system over here. And we have way, way, way more than enough power. And for now, we're just going to let them continue to build these as they do, because it's going to take a while for them to generate enough paper. And we're going to move on to the last topic of the episode. We've seen twice now that during a drought, we have this wind farm that should be producing power, but it might not be producing enough power that all of these buildings can run. An actual drought will knock out this dam and this power wheel, which means that we will not be getting any power from them, which means that we will be knocked down to just windmills. But right now we are also generating nearly 5,000 horsepower, or 4,000 horsepower if the wind decides to turn on us. And we only need about 1,000 to make all of our factories work. Now we will be building more over here, so that won't always be the case. But wouldn't it be nice if there was a way that we could take some of this excess 3,000 power we're generating right now and not using and store it somewhere so that it could be used when droughts are happening? Well, have I got great news for you, because that's exactly what the gravity battery does. Now, this is going to take 10 metal, 40 gears, and 40 planks. It's only 400 science, so we will just unlock that right now. Now, the thing that is special about the gravity battery is that the amount that it can store is based off of how high off of the ground it is. So if we were to put a gravity battery right down here, I don't actually know how much it would store. Will it tell me if I just... No. But I have to guess that building the gravity battery right here would be maybe a couple thousand power. If we built the gravity battery up here, that might be somewhere around 10,000. But we can do better than that. Now, obviously, the best place to actually build this gravity battery would be maybe up here or over here. This area I'm saving for later. This area is just going to be a pain in the ass to get to, and it would require building our power shafts all the way over here. So until we actually have a much more dire need of stored power, I'm going to build our gravity batteries over here. Now, this is still a decent spot because obviously gravity batteries can be built on triple platforms. They don't require the ground. But gravity batteries can also go directly into water. So we are just going to build platforms over here. And we are going to go up 6 high from that spot. And then we are going to use this bit as kind of a landing platform for our beavers to get up to them. And then from here, we just need to build over. All right, and now since they are over here and building these, what we are going to do is we're going to take our gravity batteries, and much like any regular building, gravity batteries will transfer power when they are adjacent. So we can just put them like that. And while they're building this, I'm just going to build our shaft for getting power down. And then we will bury those power shafts as well, because that is the theme of the episode. Making power shafts unseeable unless it's over here where I can't do much about it. And the bad tide has hit us, so we will see as Tutopolis floods a little bit, or a lot of it. We will see that our power generation, because we still have this area up here and this area up here, we are still generating almost 6,000 power. But we're probably getting near max wind there, so we do not really want for power during a bad tide. Oh, and here's a good test. Our wind generation is nothing, so we still do have more than enough, about double, during a bad tide, what we need to run our current industrial plateau. Ah, and here we go. So our gravity battery is here. It generates 2,200 power because of how high up it is. There is one thing I want to do with this, though. We can extend that, though this is not the world's best spot to do it. This is one block from the bottom of the map, so we can only actually use a 1 high dynamite. If we blow that up one block lower, then it will cause these gravity batteries, as we could see with this here, this gravity battery would land on top of the dynamite. So it has actually currently lowered this by 2,000 horsepower per hour. But we will see that the gravity batteries, if we drop this down another block, will store 24,000 horsepower per hour. A little contamination never hurt anybody. A lot of contamination did, though. So if we blow these up, we will see goes from 20,000 to 24,000 horsepower that these store. And I would go deeper here, but we actually can't go any deeper. This is the bottom of the map. And with the last final touches complete, we now have 5 gravity batteries generating about 120, or storing about 120 horsepower hours. So these combined with the wind farm should guarantee that during a drought, our factories never stop running. Now I do just want to implement a few final touches here. Number 1, we have this paper being generated now and it's not being used for anything. So we're going to unlock a printing press. This printing press is going to take 30 metal, 30 gears, and 50 planks. It is going to use some of the paper and turn it into books, which we will, of course, have a small storage here for. And then I am just going to, in both of these little corners over here, I'm going to make small, little libraries. Small little libraries so that the beavers can access those books for a well-being boost if they want to. Now, one thing I do want to address before it is brought up in the comments is that we do have a contaminated beaver here. I don't know how that happened. Either way, at the moment, it's only a single beaver that is contaminated. I will deal with this in the next episode and show how to get rid of contamination. But for now, it's not going to actually affect us at all because we have all of our jobs filled. So Quovix here can just be walking around contaminated and not doing anything in this big old colony. Hopefully I do get to fix his condition before he dies, because that would be kind of sad. He's only 37. And with our paper mill complete and churning out books, it's time to move on to the end of the episode, cleaning everything up and doing a little bit of detailing. Now, I'm not going to make you sit there and listen to me bloviate on every single little decision I make here, so we're just going to do a little bit of a montage. And with that, a drought has started, and we can see that our gravity batteries are fluctuating now because our wind turbines are sometimes producing power and sometimes not. So as we can see, I did just a little bit of detailing here. I made Jayunya Memorial Dam something more worthy of being called a memorial dam. I did unlock scarecrows and put them in a few spots around Tutopolis. Scarecrows give a little bit of an aesthetic bonus, but it's not all too much. And I cleared out most of the things over on this side of the berries that were over here on this side of the map, so that we can make use of this in the future. But with all of that said and done, and the sun rising on Tutopolis, we have created a new water turbine up here that right now is not doing anything because we're in the middle of a drought, but normally generates quite a bit of power through bad tides. Expanded our wind farm up to this cliff, providing quite a view for the citizens of Tutopolis. We have added paper production as well as moved all of our power shafts underground. And last but not least, we have built 5 gravity batteries so that during droughts, we do not have to worry about the fluctuating of the windmills. If they are not generating power, then we have 120 horsepower stored up to use to continue running our factories. With all that said and done, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. If you have, please do consider subscribing. I'm getting very close to the 1,000 subscriber mark. Hitting that would make me very happy and make me feel like this has all been worthwhile, because it's a lot of work making these episodes every 2 weeks. If you have anything to say, please do comment. I read every single one, even if they're negative. And I do always appreciate constructive criticism, though I also get that sometimes you just want to say mean things. This was quite a extensive episode, but there is a lot more coming down the pipe. We have all this extra power and we plan to make use of it. We're going to move down a couple more tech trees and then we are going to get into robots. And with that, thank you for watching. Tutopolis will return. Goodbye.